Okay, sorry, I went away without finishing the job on the flashing. What we're going to show you right now is how to make the corners nice, and I'm going to show you two methods. One involves the material that you're going to have as part of your regular sun deck, using the heavier 1.5 ounce mat. And the other one's going to be using something that you'd have to pick up extra, which is some really fine surface veil. And I'll get a close-up shot of these separately just so you can see the difference. But surface veil is what you'd ask for. And this is a really fine fiberglass cloth. It is going to blend right in. It's not really high strength, but really you're just doing it for visual appearance. So now, briefly, just to talk about the mixing of the resin, and this is a little bit of fiberglass resin in here. You can see that it's blue in color, and that's because it has a bit of a agent in here that indicates when catalyst has been added to it. So once I add the catalyst, which is going to be quite a small amount, although relatively large for this amount of resin because this is quite small, eventually this resin will turn from blue to an amber, and that just means you've properly catalyzed it. I'll go through and show you the steps of that again in a separate series of photos. For now I'm just going to add the catalyst in. I've pre-measured it. Because of the way I'm doing this, I want it to set quite quickly, and resin is a temperature and catalyst driven reaction. The catalyst in fact basically raises the temperature of the resin, and therefore the hotter it is and or the more catalyst you add, the faster your resin's going to set up and the less time that you have to work with it. Because I want this to set up quite quickly, I've added a fair bit of catalyst relative to the resin. And I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it is starting to change away from the blue color into a bit of a green right now, but that will turn into amber as we go along. So that's fine. Thoroughly mixed. I've got a resin brush, just a cheap bristle brush. Bristle means it won't melt when you're using the fiberglass resin. Cheap means you can throw it away when you're done. What I'm going to do here is first take the surface veil and put it on the corner. Actually, sorry, I will wet it out first with a bit of resin. That'll help the veil stick into place on a vertical surface. And then what I'm going to do is just place the veil over top and work it in just with, again, my gloved fingers here. That's the benefit of wearing gloves, is that you can get your hands dirty and you don't have to worry about it. So I'm just dabbing it into place, allowing the resin I put down to hold it on. And then I'm going to put some more resin on top and just work it in. Because it's so thin, it doesn't take much resin at all. And you may not be able to see this on camera, but there's a little bit of a piece here that doesn't want to stick down, which is quite common with fiberglass. The glass fibers themselves are relatively stiff, so they don't always want to sit down flat. So I'm just going to give it a little cut so I can fold it over at the top there. If it didn't sit down, I could always sand it. It's not like I said, it's not a lot of material here. It wouldn't take much sanding effort to get it on. If you take a look at the resin, you can see it's now amber. So that means that the catalyst reaction is starting, and I probably don't have a lot of time to work with it, so I'll keep going here. Just putting on another layer of the surface veil. I usually, if I'm doing this way, I do 2 layers. Again, it gives it enough to make it look nice, make it look blended in once the gel coat's all on, and that's all you're really doing this for. So that's done here. I'm going to move on to the other corner now, and again I'm using the thick fiberglass mat. So I'm going to start the same way. Bit of a hurry here because I've got the resin kicking quickly. Paint on a coat of resin. And I'm going to stick down the mat. You can also see here that my hands are starting to get messy, which is why I said I like changing gloves all the time. And I'm going to just wet out this fiberglass mat. And you can see here, but you'll see it later even better on the main surface of the deck, that when you wet out fiberglass, what it does is it turns from the white that the fabric is just to basically clear. It'll have a little bit of amber color like the resin, but it's basically clear. It's basically see-through. That's what you want. If you see any white, it means there's air bubbles. A little bit of white is okay, a lot of white's not so good. Now, fiberglass mat is a little harder to work with because it's a little bit thicker, and I don't quite have it on the edge here, but you know, that's okay. What I'll do is I'll wait for it to set up a little bit, and I'll just take a razor knife and I will trim off these edges. And they all come off cleanly. I just have to wait a little while longer. Now, one thing about the resin, just while I'm here, is as it starts to set up or continues to set up, once all the catalyst indicator is gone and that, at some point it's going to start to go jelly. It's going to be kind of lumpy, like a jelly on a hot day. And when it gets to that point, it's garbage. You should just throw it away. So I think we're probably about a minute away from that with this, which just shows you that if you don't mix your resin carefully, sometimes you got to work with it very quickly. This is just to show you the difference in basically cured or close to cured resin and uncured resin. You can see the cured resin has a dark color. I'm trying to see here, and it is very close. It's starting to get thicker now. It's close to becoming jelly, which is when you want to throw it away or at least stop using it and let it harden. Whereas the uncured resin here has got a blue color. It's very thin. The blue color will go away as the catalyst reacts with the rest of the resin. And that's basically what it's there for, just to tell you that everything's working correctly and how much time you have left. And that's the resin that's cured again. Like I said, getting thicker, a little bit lumpy there, a little bit clumpy as it drops, and it's going to be going into a gel very quickly here.